In this lecture, you will learn about the using namespaces. So namespaces gives you a mechanism to modularize code. So a namespace allows you to label your types, functions, and variables with unique name so that using the scope resolution operator, you can give a fully qualified name. So the advantage is that you know exactly which item will be called. And the disadvantage is that using a fully qualified name, you are in effect switching of C++ arguments dependent lookup mechanism for overloaded functions where the compiler will choose the function that has the best fit according to the arguments passed to function. So defining namespace is simple. For example, let's define a namespace here. Namespace, you use the namespace keyword. You decorate the types, functions, and global variables with the namespace keyword here. And the name you give it to it. So let's create a utilities namespace here and here. So let's create a functions in this namespace pool data here. Let's make this, for example, just the comment the code here, and then let's add another function here, integer get data. Let's add another comment here because we will fill these codes in later lectures. Code here. So as you can see here, we create a code, for example, example code 2 and example code 1. And then you don't use the semicolon after declaring and ending namespaces here. So now you use these symbols here. For example, if utilities namespace pool data returns true, then you will get the then you create the integer e number utilities get data. And here, let's add an example. We will use e variable here. So then the namespace declaration may just declare the functions, so in which case the actual functions will have to be defined elsewhere. So, and you will need to use the qualified name here. Let's make it here. You can do this like this. For example, namespace my professional utilities. Usually it's not best practice to make your variable names that long, but that's okay. Well, this is just an explanatory code here. Then let's declare the functions, declaring the functions here, pool data, and integer get data. As you can see, we can declare the same function names. Because of that, these two utilities doesn't have to do with each other, so they are in the different namespace. So you can declare the same named functions here because they don't have to interact with each other. So then we can create a bool here. For example, let's define the bool here. Bool utilities, or not here. You can define this code later. Defining the functions later. Here, defining the functions here. So bool utilities. Here, as you can see, we add here two double dots here and pool data. And then you can write the code that returns a bool from this function. And we can create the get data after. As you can see here, this is the integer So integer, oops, we have a problem here. Let's see what is this. Cannot define or declare pool data here because the name does not include namespace utilities. As you can see, we cannot use the another. As you can see, there is a different namespace. So we need to add here my professional utilities, and as you can see here, error is gone. So let's add another pool here. Not this is an integer. I'm sorry, integer. Okay, my professional utilities get data and code that returns an integer in this function. So one use of a namespace is to version your code. So the first version of your code may have a side effect that is not in your functional specification and is technically a bug. So, but some colors will use it and depend on it. When you update your code to fix the bug, you may decide to allow your colors the option to use the old version so that their code does not break. So you can do this with the namespace, but before that, I want to here let's use only my professional's code. So I just commented this code, and you can use later here, and let's create our namespace version 2 here. Okay, namespace, my professional utilities, and then let's create a version 2 in this namespace. So namespace v2, and then you can declare your functions again, and here pool data and integer get data here, integer new feature here. So now here, colors who want to specify, let's actually make our new version 2 program. So these colors who want a specified version can call the fully qualified names. For example, colors could use here my professional functions v2 and here pool data. As you can see here, there's no problem. So we can use this namespace inside the namespace. So to use so we can use this newer version and utilities pool data, my professional utilities pool data, to use the older version. So we can use, this is the new version of our namespace, and we can use the professional we have to and quote here my professional utilities, just then the first version. So as you can see, we are using pool data now, and let's use the pool data. So there's a different functions in same namespace. So when an item in a specific namespace calls an item in the same namespace, it does not have to use qualified name. So if the new feature here functions calls get data, it will be here my professional utilities here v2 get data here, and that is the called here. So it's important to note that to declare a nested namespace, you have to do the nesting manually as shown here. So let's create an example to write the first version of the code that will call it using the namespace utilities So C++11 provides a facility called an inline namespace that allows you to define a nested namespace, but allows the compiler to treat the items as being in the parent namespace when it performs an argument-dependent lookup. So let's create an inline namespace here. Okay, inline namespace v1 v1 version 1, and here pool data and integer get data here. Um, and as you can see, we have namespace v2 also. Let's actually add before v2 so we can, it's more readable. So now to call the version of get data here, as you can see, we got an error here, is ambiguous. So now to call the first version of get data, you can use the utilities get data or utilities v1 pool data. As you can see here, it's fixed v1 get data and utilities v1 pool data. So fully qualified names can make the code difficult to read, especially if your code will only use one namespace. So to help you here, you have several options. You can place a using statement to indicate that symbols declared in the specified namespace can be used without a fully qualified name. So for example, you can use the using a namespace utilities, my professional utilities, and like that.